Our story begins with our main character tired and kneeling down on the ground. It looks like a brutal battle has taken place. Comrades and allies alike is seen lying on the ground slain and pierced with stabbed wounds. Our MC only looks at his surroundings seeing this, only gets more angry witnessing this. A voice calls out saying that it was a complete and utter failure. It goes on saying that there shouldn't be a human this powerful that exist. Our MC turns around in complete disbelief that the giant stone statue he slain is still alive. The stone statue goes by the name Giant Hai-Yuta. The giant appeared in their empire 20 days ago. Amongst the giant it was two other of the same kind that came with him. He was the last of the three. The three giants have brought great chaos and destruction to their planet with the goal still being unknown. Our main character kicks the face of the giant, in frustration telling him that half the empire land became a graveyard thanks to him. He asks the giant why is he still alive and he should have died by now. Hai-Yuta responds back telling our MC to not fret, because it shall not be till long until Hai-Yuta returns to be embraced. Our MC responds back telling the giant good, and that his friends that have died before him are waiting for him. The giant is puzzled and confused by the meaning friend. Our MC goes on and tells him that the two giants that came with him were killed. One was caught by a red dragon and was burnt to a crisp while the other was sealed eternally by a mage named Lorhorn. Our MC gives a smirk telling the giant that him and his counterparts deserve to be killed. Hai-Yuta responds back telling him to not hide the truth with your shallow words powerful one. Telling him that the children of the stars can share their senses with each other and he knows those that challenge his brethren have died in the process as well. Therefore it means that the powerful ones like him no longer exist in their world. Our MC only laughs and tells him to quit spouting his bullshit and can't he see that he is buzzing with life as well. The giant statue tells him that he does not bluff and he knows that his time will soon come to an end as well. He tells our MC that it is truly a relief, if our MC had realized his talents much sooner and concentrated on training. He would have been a huge obstacle on their grand will. Our MC gets pissed hearing the stone statue words. He goes on telling the giant that he has been talking for way too long and he knows he hasn't lived the greatest life. So he shouldn't have to remind him. He tells the giant just to shut up and die already. The giant tells our MC that he is indeed impressive to be a human and that he should be proud of himself. However, in the end his world will be vanished and buried by the starlight. Before the giant could continue with any more words, our MC slashes the head of the giant completely off his torso, causing the head to fly several feet away in the process. Later on our MC is seen walking through the battlefield, and is pondering over everything that has taken place. He starts having flashbacks surrounded by his comrades laughing and telling jokes around the campfire. The scene goes back to him finding his comrades all dead and piled up together as a group. Our MC gets sad and calls them idiots. He questions what honor could you possibly have to fight until you die. He wondered if his comrades thought just because he was a little strong they figured they could be strong as well. He closes his comrade eyes, telling him he should have taken the hint and ran away instead of acting like an idiot until the end. Our MC now slumped to the ground in deep depression wonders why. Against those giants that deflected attacks from amongst the strongest Aura swordsmen in the empire. Only his sword worked against them. He wondered if it was possible that someone else could have led the attack. Perhaps his comrades wouldn't have died before everyone else. Our MC starts to drift off into unconsciousness until he hears a voice asking if there is somebody out there. The voice goes on and says that they cannot move due to injury. Our MC recognizes the voice and can't believe this person is still alive. He gets up and starts to head towards the voice. As he approaches the voice he is relieved to see the most important person from this battlefield is still alive. General Adeshan. Adeshan is seen lying near a rock broken and battered from the battle. Our MC gets happy to see that the Grand Commander is still alive. He also notices that she is missing her right arm as well. He walks up toward Adeshan and makes a remark that for someone who is still in command, why are you in this situation? Adeshan responds back calling our MC Ronan that he is a corporal and he doesn't seem so great himself. She then gets serious and asks is Hai-Yuta dead? Ronan responds back saying yes he killed him and that his body isn't too far from here. The general takes in all the words Ronan says and with a sign is relieved that the giant is dead. She continues to thank Corporal Ronan for his deed. While sitting there Ronan asks the general for a request. He requests that the cleanup for the dead soldiers are usually per regulation abandoned or burned. He asked this time could they be treated well. The general unsure of his request telling him that he's more alive than her so it would be better if he personally looked after them. She goes on by saying how could I the commander, then suddenly Ronan starts coughing up blood which he shows in the palm of his hand towards his commander. He tells her to actually see if he is more alive than her. Also he could die at any second. He goes on regretting his decisions in life saying that he fooled around most of his days so it seems unfair that he's going to die. The general asks if he does survive what would he want to do with his life. Ronan with a cheery smile tells her that he has a lot on his mind on what he wants to do, but the only thing he can think of right now is to attend an academy. The general questions his answer, wondering why the academy? Ronan further on goes on and explain that the last words of what the giant said bothered him. But most importantly, he wants to abide by his late sister's wishes, and that's by sending him to an academy. Ronan only laughs that it won't probably happen and soon he will be reunited with his family. The general gets agitated, telling him when the rain stops the search party will help, but soon Ronan cuts her off, telling her that he's already a lost cause. So there is no point of saying useless things. Suddenly the rain stops and both Adeshan and Ronan looks puzzled and surprised at the sudden change. They're both wondering why the rain suddenly stopped. All of a sudden a huge tremor hits the land and they're both caught up in the aftershock. A huge bright light appears above them, only to be in complete disbelief. A giant stone statue with 8 wings is hovering over the battlefield. Hundreds of stone giants also descend with the 8-winged stone giant. Our main character Ronan yells out, saying, "What the hell is this and where did these guys come from?" The general, in complete shock of witnessing this, falls into depression. She thought that defeating the 3 giants will result in victory towards the war. She tells herself even in the end she could not save the world for a 3rd time. She goes into deeper thought, saying with only one last chance she can't think of a way to defeat them. A voice yells out to her saying, "Commander." The voice gets even louder with a violent intent. Screams, "Grand Commander." The commander snaps out of her deep thoughts and looks to see the Corporal Ronan, telling her to get herself together. He also yells at her to hurry up and use telekinesis to shoot him upwards towards them. He curses some more, telling her that his sword cannot reach them from here and that he needs her help. The general is in shock, wondering why Ronan is still continuing to fight even though victory is impossible at this point. Ronan yells back, saying of course, and he's not going to kick the bucket while he's still breathing. Besides, even if he dies he wants to take as many of these giant stone bastards with him. The general is astonished hearing the words of her corporal. She also thinks because of his actions on the battlefield were the only way they were able to make it this far. She wonders if it's him. Then maybe they'll have a chance. The general calls out to the corporal and Ronan turns around yelling what and that he's busy trying to. Before he could finish his words the general gets close and kisses Ronan. Completely engulfs his mouth. Ronan, paralyzed that he is being kissed in this situation, wonders what the hell is going on and why is she doing this. The general puts something in his mouth which resulted into the corporal swallowing this mysterious object. Ronan asks what she put in his mouth, only for the general to whisper something in his ear. Ronan, shocked to what the general is saying and couldn't believe she's doing this in their current situation. A bright light starts charging from the stone statue hands right above them. The general ignores the light and tells Ronan if they meet again to tell her to not do anything stupid and to just tell her become a tailor. She's done lots of things, but being a tailor is something new for her, with a smile. Soon the bright light explodes and engulfs the entire land. Our main character suddenly wakes up again in some grassland with clear blue skies. He yells out, "Grand Commander," only to see no battlefield but a peaceful, calm setting. He looks over his surroundings and suddenly realizes he is back in his hometown Nimbin. Our main character has been summoned back to the past. Ronan is sitting under a tree, still not convinced that he has been brought to the past. He utters to think the Grand Commander words were true. He has a flashback of the kiss and her placing a mysterious object into his mouth. She tells him that he swallowed an orb that turns back time. That's how she, who once was a tailor, was able to climb to position of Grand Commander. Although the orb can be used up to 4 times. She has already used it 3 times. She tells him that there is only one chance left, so she's handing it over to him. She believes Corporal Ronan is the key to stopping the stone giants and saving the world's destruction. She tells him to sharpen his ability and glad that he also has the desire to innate his talent. She further on mentions that if he wants to learn he needs to attend Filian Academy. It's a place with outstanding people, so it should be a great benefit towards him. With a happy smile she says, "If we meet again can you tell me to not do anything stupid and just become a tailor?" She tells him she's done a lot of things but nothing like that. Soon the flashback ends and our main character Ronan is angry on what just happened. Due to frustration he starts banging his head on a tree, thinking, is this really real, and if it's a dream he needs to wake up. Even if it's real he doesn't even know where to start. He soon realizes something. If this really is the past then maybe he will be able to see his older sister again. He starts running off in town towards the direction of his home. He recalls if he only goes a little further then maybe. But suddenly he stops and sees some mischievous kids horseplaying. On further notice he sees one of the kids hanging upside down while the other kids are laughing at the poor kid. He recalls those guys in the past and they still haven't changed their ways. Suddenly he turns around and realizes that the kid hanging isn't hanging by rope but with magic. Someone valuable like that on the battlefield was a rare sight. He couldn't believe someone out here on the countryside possessed that sort of skill. Ronan remembers around this time that they were here too. He knows at this rate and the situation that they're in, something bad is going to happen to that child. The child that is hanging yells out and tells the kids to stop. He goes on saying he doesn't have any money and that his mother money was expensive this month. The main bully Hans is leading this charade. Asks the kid why should he care about his problems. He goes on and says he's emptying his pockets, so why does he have any concerns about his mother's health? Hans then starts slapping the hanging kid. He tells him if he wants to be a good son he should have earned more money for him and his mom. He goes on and starts hitting him, yelling more money while Hans' minions mock the hanging kid. Hans goes on and tells the red hair kid to lift the guy higher since he hasn't learned his lesson. The red hair kid with a trembling voice tells him he can't do that and if he goes any higher he might slip by mistake. Hans turns around with a menacing look, tells him he's not a girl, so why is he scared? It's not like he is the one hanging there, so shut up and lift. He threatens Azel that he will be next if he doesn't do it now. Azel is scared and wonders what to do. He wonders how did it come to this? Was it wrong for him to learn magic? He just wanted to show that he was good at something. He wants to tell the bully now that he can't do it, but he's too scared to do so. He tells himself no, this is enough and he needs to say it. He starts mustering up the courage to tell them to stop. Then suddenly he gets smacked on the back of his head by a stick from Ronan. Ronan tells him to stop, you bastard, or you're going to kill the poor kid. The telekinesis powers which were holding the kid soon releases him, causing him to fall to the ground. Hans turns around and curses at Azel, asking him what are you doing and is he going to stop just because he said so. Azel tells him he didn't do it on purpose, scared on what the bully might do next. A voice calls out to Azel telling him to not worry about trash like him and talk to me. This voice is no other than Ronan. Ronan further goes on saying now he has something to talk about to Azel. Hans in the background is getting mad that he has been completely cut out of the conversation and now he is being ignored by Azel and Ronan. Ronan continues on asking Azel where did he learn telekinesis magic from? Azel answers back that he learned it from a grimoire that he bought from a peddler. Ronan thinks to himself that Azel is this good just from a cheap grimoire. He thinks this is amazing and he wants to see a little more before he can come to a conclusion. Ronan knows with this he will be able to catch up to the giants, but suddenly he hears a familiar sound. A sword being unsheathed from its holder. He turns around to see Hans holding a sword with a violent aura, asking does Ronan dare ignore him? He goes on and says it seems like Ronan is acting up due to him purposefully losing back in the day towards him. He sprints towards Ronan and yells today is the day that he correct his manners. Hans does a downward thrust at Ronan, where Ronan only does a effortlessly sidestep dodge. He sees that this kid is holding a real long sword and wonder where did he get this from. He notices posture is really bad but he is strong, so that will do. Hans follows up a sideward swipe but Ronan easily dodges that as well. Hans is in disbelief that he easily dodges attack. Ronan while being attacked is happy that even though his body is younger he still has been instilled with his discipline as a soldier. Which is battle sense. Hans is tired from missing. He starts to tells Ronan that he is lucky and he was going to make sure that he couldn't lift a spoon for the remainder of his life. Ronan responds with a sarcastic remark and agrees with Hans that he is lucky even though he's been unlucky his whole life. Hans tells him to get on his knees and beg and he will spare his life. Also he will be taking one of Ronan's arms for trying him. He mocks him and says that if he kills him he will treat Ronan's sister very well. Ronan responded asking him did he just mention his sister. Hans happily agrees saying yes, that every time he sees his sister he wonders since her ass is so round he wonders if it feels good too. Before Hans could finish his last words Ronan angrily swings the stick that he was holding down towards the bully, swiftly cutting his ear off in a mere flash. Hans, taking a couple of seconds, realizes what just happened. He sees his ear on the ground and yells out a devastating scream. He drops his sword and yells out about his ear being cut off. He's on the ground screaming in pain while the once before onlookers who were jeering and edging him on now fell suddenly silent, watching in horror on what just happened. Ronan, who still wasn't finished, stepped up to Hans. With a violent aura and a killer's gaze he looks down at the Hans and asks him does he want to die. The onlookers that were watching is now wondering how is this possible. He was able to cut off his ear with a stick. Ronan then yells out to the onlookers calling them shitheads. He tells them to get out of here while kicking Hans away and tell them unless they want to end up like him. Ronan tells them to leave all the money they stole, of course for the cost of ruining his mood. They tell him of course they will give it back. Later on, the kid that was hanging is now holding a bag of gold. He asks Ronan is he really going to give him all of this gold. He mentions this is a lot more than what they stole from him. Ronan tells him that it's fine and this is all he needs while holding a real sword. He also mentions to the kid to not be worried about them getting back and that they won't have the audacity to wander around with their heads up. The kid is overjoyed and thanked Ronan for his help. Ronan tells him that it's fine and just to go home, but before he could finish, Azel makes a noise interrupting their conversation. Azel, with a sad expression, tells the bullied kid that he is really sorry. Thinking back on when the bully was demanding Azel to lift him in the air. Azel knew he shouldn't have done something like that regardless if he was being threatened. He tells them that he was just scared and he couldn't stop himself, with tears falling down his face. He tells them it's all his fault and that he is truly sorry for this. The kid lets out a smile, telling Azel that he was crying from the start when Hans first dragged him here. When he saw Azel, he was thinking how he was pretty much in the same situation as him. He pats him on the shoulder and tells him not to blame himself. It's not his fault. Ultimately, he does appreciate his apology. After their final gestures, the kids walks away from our two individuals, leaving Ronan and Azel in the distance. Ronan looks at Estelle and thinks she's not that bad while thinking of all types of useful things. He breaks the silence and tells Estelle that he hopes he remembers what he stated earlier and that he has business with him in 4 days. Ronan starts walking away, leaving Azel bewildered. Realizing the situation he is in, Azel yells out, "What does he mean?" Ronan only responds back that he is busy and they will see each other when the moon is up in the night sky. He turns around with a violent glare, telling Azel if he doesn't come he knows what's going to happen next. Azel lets out a yelp overhearing this. With that, Ronan said he off and starts to run away, yelling that Azel is dead if he is late on their meeting. Azel is left standing there puzzled over Ronan. Later on, Ronan has arrived at a cabin in the wilderness. He has flowers in his hand and wonders if this is a bit too much. He remembers that his sister likes flowers and he just randomly plucked the ones he saw while coming here. He gets frustrated and starts yelling at himself that he should have just threw the flowers away. All of a sudden, the door from the cabin opens and a voice speaks out, wondering who was outside, and says it was just you, Ronan. Ronan, with a sense of confusion and overall awe, starts reflecting back his time as a soldier. He thought to himself 1,000 times what would he do if he saw her again. Should he apologize for not saying a word before he left, or should he tell her he misses her? Ronan thought about it so much, thinking about his late sister Errol, but at this moment that was all the things only Ronan the soldier could say. All he can say right now. He pauses while Errol comes out with a happy smile, telling him that he made it home early today. With a quite monotone expression he says yes. Hess back. Inside, Errol is seen hugging the flowers and never thought she would see the day that her cold brother brought her flowers. She goes on asking her cute brother has he had enough stew. Ronan only responds that he has had enough, but asks his sister a question on how old is she this year. She tells him that he's 22 and asks why. Ronan responds saying that he forgot suddenly and wanted to remember. Errol gets mad and tells him that not something he should forget. To himself, Ronan think if she's 22 then he only has 10 years left until the giant invade the empire. Errol comes up and places her hand on his forehead, wondering if Ronan has a fever. Ronan remembers Errol is the same as she always been. A bright, kind and warm person. She makes him wish that this moment could last forever, but in about 10 years, in order to protect this world and his sister, he must. He breaks off and tells his sister that he has something to tell her. She ponders and asks what is it. He tells her that he was thinking about entering the academy. With an excited expression, Errol gets overjoyed hearing that Ronan really wants to go to the academy. She goes on asking him again does he really mean it, which Ronan with a confused look says yeah, he means it. She tells him that he never listened to her when she brought it up. She then runs across the room, going through an array of kitchen pots and pans, telling him she knew this day would come. She tells him he's smart and that he can excel at anything while throwing everything around looking for a certain item. She then brings out a big metal pot which contains gold to help pay for the academy tuition. Ronan is surprised and wonders how much gold is in there. She tells him that she was secretly saving this to surprise him if he ever changes his mind. If so, she wanted to be able to afford it right away. Ronan smiles and compliments his sister, telling her that she is amazing and that she did all this for him. He appreciates her effort on helping him with his tutoton, but he tells her this wouldn't do. She gets annoyed and asks him what does he mean. She goes on and tells him this is more than what it looks and that she doesn't know which academy Hess trying to get into. Ronan tells her the Imperial School Philian Academy. She suddenly gets puzzled and then a scream is heard outside the cabin. Philian Academy, the Empire's best leading educational institution. This academy has the continent's best professors and combined with the Imperial family funding, this is the place that gives the finest education. It's so prestigious it could be called a factory of heroes, with the list of the Grand Commander Adeshan, Swordmaster Shullafan, the worst criminal the Winter Witch. Most of these individuals were very useful during the war. So useful he can understand why the Grand Commander mentioned this to him. Ronan, back to reality, knows the issue will be passing the high entrance standards and also covering the insane fees on joining the academy. To think his sister supported him regardless of the academy he chose, made him determined to show her the results of passing. He continues walking and runs into Maisel. Mies saying his name Azel corrects him by calling him Azel and not Maisel. Also, Azel mentions that Ronan wouldn't leave him alone if he didn't come. Ronan only laughs and tells Azel to forget about that. Ronan continues on telling Azel tonight they will be very busy and Teresa test is waiting for Azel. Azel wonders about this test Ronan proposed him. Ronan tells him to not worry about it and to use telekinesis on him. Ronan asks Azel to lift him as high as he can using his powers. Azel gets instantly worried and tells Ronan it's dangerous to do that. Ronan tells Azel to do as he says and he won't die from it, so don't be scared. Azel prepares himself and tells Ronan okay. Azel uses his telekinesis power invisible hand upon Ronan. Ronan is quite impressed by Azel's technique as he gradually gets lifted higher and higher into the sky. There's some things that are lacking from Azel's technique like height and stability, but the feeling is similar to back then. The spell used to help him fight on equal footing was telekinesis. Telekinesis is a rare ability and among the mages it's even rare to begin with. This means that Azel is going to become the most important item needed for his future battle against High Yuta. He realizes so far this start back into the past is really good. Azel on the other hand is struggling holding his telekinesis power at bay. He asks Ronan can he come down now since it's getting difficult for him. Ronan tells him to hold it a little longer and he must try one more thing. He tells him he's going to come down himself. Azel wonders what does he mean himself. Suddenly Ronan does a series of techniques and moves using his sword as he cuts the air. Like a ninja he comes swiftly to the ground landing on his feet with ease. Azel looking at Ronan was amazed by what he'd just seen and wonders did he cut his mana through the air to perform those acrobatic movements. He asks him what did he just do and Ronan tells him that it was an acrobatic move that he was able to do for a long time now. Azel still doesn't believe Ronan acrobatic movement and this is the first time he witnessed someone cut mana only to receive a punch on the top of the head from Ronan. Ronan tells him to let it go since he doesn't know what's happening either. Ronan thinks finding out what this ability is one page of homework set for him. He must figure out why his sword only worked on him. He might know the reason why but it is something he can take slowly right now on figuring out. Ronan then grabs a bag and tells Ronan that he passed the test and there is something he needs Azel to do. He tells him to hold the bag and follow him. Before the moon disappears Therese something he needs Azel to help him with. Azel wonders at this time of night what would you want him to do. Ronan in the night sky on smiles and says this might become the first page of Ronan's biography, the Empire's greatest history book. Azel says Philian Academy and wonders if he heard Ronan wrong. He goes on we're going to the Philian Academy where only the Empire elites are. You and I Ronan tells him he heard it correctly and tells him to stop asking him about it. He then asks him if he doesn't want to go. Azel tells him that's not the issue and he should have no problem since he has a talent in martial arts but he wonders about himself since he doesn't know how to do anything. And also he calls himself cowardly and timid. Ronan with a stern expression looks at Azel and asks him does he wants to continue living like that. He tells him with his talent alone he would be wasting his time humoring punks. He asks him again is this the life he really wants. Ronan goes on berating Azel telling him he does have some idiotic sides to himself. From cowardly and timid and becoming a crybaby that cries at anything and ultimately being a loser. Azel takes the verbal punishment as a physical blow to the body. Ronan at the end tells him but still the bad traits are fine and that he can change that from now on. He then gets serious and tells him but still the time that passes now can't be changed. One day he will regret it. He then recalls back to his past life. He goes back to Azel and asks him what does he think and has he changed his mind. Azel gets flustered and wonder why Ronan is worried so much for someone like him. Ronan tells him he won't force it upon him since it's his own life so he can go back if he wants as he continues to walk away. Azel yells out telling Ronan to wait. Azel tells Ronan that he wants to change too. He wants to go with Ronan to Philian Academy and for him to teach him what he needs to do. Ronan with a devious smile upon hearing Azel's words turn back and tells Azel this is the first has been acting manly for once. This will be the first step for manly Azel. He asks him is he ready to start and he tells him yes. Ronan tells back around with devilish look thinking things are going according to plan. Later on in the night a campfire is seen in the distance. Azel and Ronan are hiding in the bushes. Azel seems somewhat afraid and asks Ronan is this his first hurdle. Ronan tells him the first obstacle on bringing out his skills is testing it on a lunar goblin. With a cheeky expression Ronan tells Azel it's great isn't it? Azel only wonders how and what would he be doing. Before he could think any further Ronan says now then are we ready to get started. Ronan explains that a lunar goblin is a type of goblin that commonly appears in this area. You can distinguish them from normal goblins by their yellow skins and disfigured bodies. The one unique trait of the lunar goblin is that they go crazy over gold and other treasures. Their main objective is to ambush merchants and steal their treasures. After the continuous fights and ambushes the goblins like to gather all their stolen goods in one area and hold a festival. Tonight is one of the nights with a full moon like tonight. Azel wonders, is this the reason why he's here? And Ronan tells him yes, this is the reason. They're here to steal all the treasure tonight. Azel tells him that they never heard of such things of goblins gathering trees and holding a festival in one area. Azel asks Ronan how does he know that, and he tells him that he has his ways. He thinks to himself he can't tell Azel that he saw them in his past life when he was wandering about. He quickly hands Azel the bag to just use his telekinesis to move all the treasure into this bag while those guys are sleeping. Ronan tells him it's a simple task, but Azel is unsure of Ronan's words. Azel asks Ronan what if he makes a mistake and they wake up. Ronan then tells Azel it will be really bad if that happens. Azel panics and tells Ronan this is way too dangerous and that they both should think it over. Ronan calls Azel a coward and tells him to listen up. In order for him to get into Filion Academy they need two things. The first thing is money. They're going to need a way to afford both of their insane tuition fees. Second is real experience. Money is the problem, but most important thing is that Filion is full of elites who have been training since birth. For Azel to win against those guys there's only one thing that Azel needs to do, and that's to gain experience by risking his life. These guys are the perfect opportunity and they'll be gaining both money and experience. Basically killing two birds with one stone. He asks Azel if he's wrong and does he have any better ideas. Azel says he doesn't, and quickly Ronan stated then it's all decided. He urges Azel to get started right away then. Meanwhile golds and jewelry are steadily being placed in the bag and away from the goblins. Ronan urges Azel to just keep going steadily and they just about got it all. Once the last remnants of treasure hover over the bag, Ronan tells Azel to drop it and the jewelry falls down into the bags, finishing their grand heist. Ronan looks at the bag and can only smile looking at the amount of the loot and the bags being filled with treasure. He congratulates Azel on doing a good job and tells him experience is the best. Azel is surprised it worked as well, and also Ronan, since he wasn't full confident about Azel and wonder if he could get used to this experience. He states that he's better than what he thought. He realizes he has found a good minion and can put him to good use. Ronan points out since the bags are full now they can leave, since there really isn't anything else to do at this point. Before anything goes wrong, he says. In the distance from where they was you can see a bird-like creature flying away from two men who are chasing after it. One of the men yells out, calling the bird a stupid chicken head, while the other one is telling the bird to stop. Ronan looks and wonders what kind of idiots would be causing a lot of commotion this late at night. One of the lunar goblins wake up from hearing the noise and looks to see all their treasure has been taken. He yells out that their gold has been taken by thieves. All the other lunar goblins wake up and start looking around the area to catch the perpetrators. They spot Ronan and Azel trying to quietly sneak off in the bushes. The goblins let out a sudden chase after them. Ronan and Azel realize they have been spotted and Azel lets out a terrifying cry asking Ronan what should they do. Ronan lets out a sigh and figured things were going to well, but he expected this. Azel in panic wonders should we throw the bags towards them and run away. Ronan tells him no way and explains how are you going to pay for the tuition without this. Azel tells him that the gold isn't important right now if they die. He then yells out that the goblins are here. Ronan, who is ignoring Azel's loud commotion, has an inner monologue to himself wondering will the longsword he's holding from cheap steel will be doable. He figures with the weight and hardness of the sword, it can withstand about 15 attacks. He notices there are about 30 goblins in this pack. Suddenly the first 3 goblins that reach them jump towards Ronan on what looks like to be an attack. Azel lets out a yell and tells Ronan to watch out. Ronan, who is only thinking about the 15 attacks, unsheathed his sword and lets out a devastating attack, beheading 3 goblins at the same time in one go. Azel watched in horror of the blood flying through the air. Ronan only says now he only has 14 more attacks with the sword. The crows shriek in the night as Ronan is finishing his last attack on the goblin, throwing his sword at his head. He wonders if that was the last one and compliments himself saying it wasn't that bad. Azel, still stuck in place from the initial attack, is telling himself what he witnessed was impossible. Azel goes back to the first attack where he saw Ronan behead the 3 goblins in one go. More of the goblins rushed in straight after and Ronan just disappeared for a little bit and appeared again all in one instant. Ronan asks Azel what is he doing and is he going to continue being space out. Azel apologizes to Ronan and Ronan tells him to get his things, they're going home. On the walk home Ronan complains to Azel saying that this mission was tiring and he thought they'll be able to travel comfortably. He thinks to himself his muscles have gotten sore from just slicing goblins and wonders if it because he is still growing. He figures when he gets home he is going to do some physical hardcore training. Azel, interrupting his thoughts, asks Ronan what was that horrible shriek, where Ronan responds he doesn't know. Unknown to them in a distance a bow with an arrow attached is pointing at our 2 individuals. The individual releases the arrow and is flying right at Azel's back. Azel turns around to see the object flying right at him. Where only Ronan gets pissed and wonders what is it now. Ronan grabs the arrow mid-air, saving Azel from getting hit. Ronan wonders where did this arrow come from all of a sudden, and wonders if the forest is cursed and why are there so many crazy bastards here tonight. He turns to see two individuals and asks who they are. The two individuals respond back saying they didn't think they were human. And children to be at that. One of the men apologizes to the kids while eyeing the bag of gold they're carrying. He further goes on and says he heard some rustling from the bushes and thought it was a monster while approaching them. He looks back at his partner and with a sympathetic look he feels sorry for almost killing them. He asks if they're hurt and Ronan cuts him off, calling his story bullshit and that he can't even hide the look in his eyes. He tells them to stop with their shitty acting and asks them again who are they, with a demanding tone. One of the men stepped up nonchalantly, telling Ronan that it must have slipped his mind and he forgot to introduce himself properly while reaching behind his back. The man soon tries to do a sneak attack on Ronan, telling him that they are Caliboro, while bringing down the dagger towards Ronan, attempting to kill him. Ronan grabs his arm and remembers the group name Caliboro and delivers a powerful upward thrust, knocking the first culprit senseless to the ground in a single blow. He calls them pieces of shit. The other bandit rushes in, cursing at Ronan while holding a steel dagger. Azel sees the dagger and uses his telekinesis invisible hand and holds the other man in place. The bandit is shocked and furious that he can't move and somehow being held. Azel further on tells Ronan this guy is dangerous, and Ronan only smiles and thanks Azel for using his abilities to help him out. Ronan goes in and delivers a series of sequence knife attacks on the bandit, leaving him exploding from the attack. Azel lets out a yelp and wonders if the guy is really dead. Ronan confirms to Azel that he is dead, and Therese no way he would let someone live when they were trying to kill them. He also Azel, didn't he hear what the guy said? They're Caliboro. A group that does poaching, kidnapping, human trafficking. Anything that involves crime, Caliboro participates in it. They are the Empire's most evil poaching group. He kills the other bandit that is unconscious and tells him if it wasn't for him, Azel organs would have been harvested and would have been buried secretly in the ground today. Knowing these guys and letting them live is a crime, and he tells him to not make a fuss since they're dead. Suddenly one of the bags the bandits were carrying starts flying in the air. Azel and Ronan looks at the bag and become shocked on why the bag is moving on its own. They're wondering if it's a poached animal inside the bag. They both take a look inside the bag and they see blue eyes gleaming at both of them. The bird flies out the bag and starts flapping his wings in the air. Both of them look at the new animal and wonders what is with this chicken. Meanwhile, Ronan keeps calling the blue bird a chicken. Azel points out this is the first time he is seeing a blue bird. Ronan agrees this is his first time too as well, and looks at the shackle that's binding the blue bird. It's a Caliboro poaching shackle and it disturbs the prisoner's mana and restricts their movement. Ronan wonders if they only use it in rare cases or when dealing with rare creatures. Perhaps this blue bird is one of such things. Suddenly he hears a voice coming from the blue bird. The voice gets a clear signal and yells he finally linked communications. Azel gets frightened, wondering did the blue bird just talk? Ronan calms Azel down, telling him it's just communication magic. Seeing that the user was able to talk to us, as soon as the creature comes out the bag must mean that the bag may have a function where it blocks mana. Ronan responds back to the voice suggesting he must be the blue bird owner from the other end. The voice responds back yes, he is Varen and he is currently researching fantastical beasts at his institution. He is Marpez's the blue bird guardian. He said no matter how many times he tried communicating with it, it never worked. He was soon going to make a report, but he's glad he is relieved knowing that he was able to connect with his blue bird. He apologizes for being rude and asks who they are. Ronan responds back saying they're righteous citizens that were passing by and they ended up getting into a fight with some poachers who kidnapped his bird. And well, there was too much bloodshed to explain, so he figured he'll leave it at that. Pretty much we saved your bird. Researcher Varen on the other end lets out a yelp, repeating Ronan words mentioning poachers and kidnapped. Varen calms down saying it crossed his mind, but he never would have thought it would actually happen. He tells Ronan that he is hugely indebted to him. He's not sure how to go about repaying Ronan. Ronan tells him he doesn't need to repay him, he's just worried on how can he return his bird. It seems like his bird is really exhausted from being chained up. He tells him if he's able to take the chain off of the bird, will it be able to fly well enough? Varen tells Ronan that it should be able to fly, and in fact the dream bird has great homing instinct. He tells Ronan to give it a try and see if he's able to free the bird from his chains. With a swift strike, Ronan pulls out his sword and does a quick attack without the blue bird realizing what just happened. The chains break off the blue bird and Ronan tells the bird to go back to his dad and to stop making him worry. The blue bird gives out a cheery-eyed expression, thanking his savior Ronan. The blue bird is showing Ronan a gesture wanting Ronan to do something. Ronan is wondering why the blue bird is shoving his ass in his face. Varen tells Ronan that it's telling Ronan to pluck a feather from out it. It seems like the bird wants to meet Ronan again. Varen further goes on and explain the feather has a trait that will lead the main body towards it. Sort of like a compass. Ronan and Azel looks in amazement at the bird and Ronan decides to pluck a feather. Before the bird takes off, Varen tells Ronan to come by the institution later and come visit him in Marpez. The blue bird takes off swiftly in the night, leaving Ronan and Azel in the night. Ronan comments that the bird is really fast and Azel asks Ronan what is he holding. Ronan looks at the palm of his hand wondering why it stings. As he looks closely he gets more confused and wonders what is this. A few days later there are merchants in town bartering and selling their goods. One of the merchants is observing a fine amulet through his lenses. He tells the buyer that it's an incredible object and he will buy it for 20 gold. The merchant name is Don Carabel and Hess the owner of the Carabel merchantry. He further goes on and says that Hess happy to stumbled across a great customer and to think all the items here are of great value. It must be his lucky day. Ronan responds back with a smile to Don, telling him he finally met someone that understands him. Ronan goes on and says all the merchants he encountered are scammers and he was getting annoyed too. But now that he found a conscientious merchant, his hard labor of walking around has finally paid off. Don thanks him for his compliments and asks him is there anything else he wishes to have appraised. Ronan asks if it's possible could he have this appraise. He tells him he's not going to sell it, but he is curious on what exactly is it. Ronan pulls out a mystical egg and shows it to the merchant. Since that night the blue bird left this egg behind. At first he thought it was poop and initially threw the egg towards the rock to preserve it. The egg smashed the rock into pieces and Ronan was able to figure out that this was a very tough item. The merchant, bewildered at the egg, tells Ronan he doesn't know if it's an actual bird egg but it's a dropping from a rare fantastical creature he can insure. He tells him it might be worth a lot of money. He looks at the color and texture of the egg. Ronan asks is it horse poo? To only get laughed at by the merchant. Don gives back the egg and suggests Ronan to have it appraised in a specialized setting. Since he can't sell it now he takes the merchant words into consideration and decides to place the egg back into his inventory. Ronan then asks the merchant if he perhaps sells Filian book. Don wonders if Ronan is a student that wants to attend the exams for the academy. Ronan tells him yes, him and Azel were both planning on taking the entrance exams. Don tells them this is good timing because his daughter is also taking the exams as well and ensures them she could be with great help towards them. A voice is heard from the back and Don tells the both of them that she is back. She is his only child Marya. Ronan gets confused and repeats the name Marya, remembering that name before. Don tells Marya to welcome the visitors and that they're important people he just got done handling business with. Marya gets puzzled and calls them babies. Don apologizes to them and explains she grew up as a merchantry so she speaks quite rough at time. Before Azel could speak to Ronan on the matter, Ronan approaches Marya and asks if she really is Marya. He clarifies if this is the same Marya that uses the prefix sen. Marya answers him yes, but wonders how does Ronan know this. Ronan looks at Marya and thinks that it's strange because the Marya he knows was actually a guy. Ronan has another question and asks Marya to come closer, he has to whisper him something. Marya comes in closer to hear what Ronan has to say. Ronan asks does he have that thing down there. Marya ponders what is he talking about. Ronan goes further on and says a dick. Thank you all for making it this far. This part is covering chapters for 1 through 9. Please feel free to like and subscribe and comment that thing in the comment section. Thanks.